I'm Jim Van Gelder. I'm here from the Orange County Audubon Society. I would explain to you how Orange County Audubon relates to National Audubon, but I don't really understand it myself. But we're kind of, we're a local chapter. So it's kind of a subdivision of the National Audubon Society. And we, what do? We have several little sanctuaries that we manage, one of which is a pretty prominent birding area, 6.5 Station Marsh down in Goshen. So you may have heard of that, and that's a really great spot. The Heritage Trail runs along one side, and we maintain a bunch of bird houses there and actually own the wetland proper. And a couple of other smaller ones that are like little pocket parks scattered around. We do outreach things like this, and we
Thank you.
we run field trips, and I don't have any field trips completely scheduled on the calendar right now, but if you are a member and you look at our website, or even if you're not a member and just look at our website, or like our, you know, if you're on Facebook, if you get our Facebook page, then there will be notifications of when the next field trips are. Probably I'd like to do one at the Wallkill National Wildlife Refuge, which is down in Warwick on the New Jersey border, because at this time of year you get shorebirds coming down from up north. But we'll see towards the end of August. And what else was I going to say about... Oh, I'm sorry, I'm a little out of practice here. I haven't done a presentation in a while. I totally forgot our pamphlets for joining the Audubon, but if anyone, you know, you don't have to be a member to go on field trips or use the sanctuaries, but we're always looking for new members. And I also usually bring some promo material for the New York State Young Birders Club, which a lot of people don't know exists. But my wife is one of the adults who's adult co-chair. So if you know any young people, just be aware that that exists.
What age range would that be?
It starts at 10 to 19. 10 years old to 19 years old. So, this, we are doing, let's see.
Are we supposed to be looking at the computer screen?
Yeah.
Oh,
You can look at
okay.
me, but I'm, okay.
Depends how good your eyes are.
I don't know, do you want to dim the house lights a little bit? I probably could save a little electricity. I might,
That's
Perfect.
good, yep.
I might be a little out of practice here too. Usually I rehearse a little bit more, but it was so doggone hot this week, I only did it this morning. So beginner bird identification, this is kind of geared, rather than show you individual birds, which I will be doing, there's only so much people are going to remember. So I'm going to kind of go through the means that you use to tell what birds are what, and where you can look the information up. It's kind of the teach a man to fish theory. Okay, so the things to look at for identifying birds: size and shape, color and field marks, overall color and field marks, behavior, and the habitat.
What does field marks mean?
Well, we're getting to that.
Okay.
All will be revealed. But oh yeah, please don't, if you have a question, don't hesitate to just yell it out, or a comment. I start to dry up if I talk too much, so audience participation is good.
Should I come with a glass of water?
I do have one here,
Okay.
and I haven't spilled it yet, so
No, I spilled mine.
I'm keeping it over there. So, for example, and here's a little black-capped chickadee, which most people recognize. Its size and shape: it's small, it's got a large head, a plump body, and a short, pointy bill. We'll cover more on bills later. Color and field marks. And I'm going to go through all of these things in detail, but this is just kind of an introduction to what they are. Overall color is like white, black, and gray in different spots. A little bit of buff color on the side, hard to see, and the gray wings. Behavior. They're busy, agile, often around other types of birds. You usually hear them before you see them. And habitat. Woods, backyards, shrubs, bird feeders. Some of these features are not terribly useful to figuring out what kind of bird you're looking at, but some of them, like habitat, are actually very important. Okay, size and shape, and just in general, this is an eastern meadowlark, which I was hoping to see over at Grasslands, where I just was, but there's not much happening in the middle of the day in August when it's this hot. Okay, this is, I want to give full credit. My friend Melissa set this PowerPoint up and did most of it. So she liked to get very tricky with the graphics. So this is the silhouette, okay? Anybody know what bird this is? Hazard a guess?
Heron.
Yeah, it is a
Blue heron.
great blue heron. So it's got the long spear-like bill, the S-shaped neck, the long legs. It's pretty obvious. I'm going to redo this sometime and contrast it with like maybe an egret, which is very similar, but you can still tell the difference in the shape. And there's a picture of what it looks like without being reduced to a silhouette. Okay, this is a very exaggerated crest on this one, but they do that sometime. So this is the cardinal. Okay. So in addition to having the crest and the red color, which everybody knows, cardinals have a pretty long tail. So that's another clue to what kind of bird it is. If sometimes the females aren't that colorful, sometimes all you see is the silhouette in dim light.
I have teenagers.
Yes, a
Yeah,
lot of younger birds are coming around now.
Yeah.
Okay, now this is kind of hard to tell because the bill on this looks very small, but it is a sparrow. It almost looks like a chickadee bill, but that's just because it's foreshortened. So the shape, small, round-bodied songbird with short, thick bills. Anybody hazard a guess what that is?
Kingfish.
That's a kingfisher, yes. It's the belted kingfisher, which is the only kind of kingfisher you have to worry about here. South-bodied bird, large head, long bill, and the big crest on top. And this one's the more colorful one. This one has the red band. And
Where would they be?
where would they be?
In our area?
Oh yeah, they're always found around water, being kingfishers.
They're fishers.
And it doesn't take a big body of water. Anything with fish in it,
Right.
it will
Like the kill.
hold them. Yeah. Shangon kill. If the water gets too shallow, they might not hang around because they dive. And we actually have a video of that later.
Aw.
But this being the more colorful one is a little different than most birds. Usually the males are more colorful. The males don't have the rusty band. So this is a female kingfisher.
Really?
Okay. Did I? How do I go back? I think I might have skipped a slide. Yeah, that's what happened. I
Okay.
hit the button the wrong time. Okay, now we are moving along to size. Size can be very hard to judge out in the field because you're looking at a bird far away. You're probably going to be using binoculars, which makes far things look bigger. So a good guide is to kind of, if you can judge it against maybe there's another bird around, or just say to yourself, that looks like about the size of a robin, maybe a little bigger than a robin. Or, sparrow size, robin size, or crow size, or eagle size.
Can I ask a question about robins? Is it my imagination, or all the robins this year seem much bigger than other years?
I don't think that that's a thing,
Oh.
but they're, yeah. I haven't but as I say, size is kind of hard to judge. Maybe you're seeing them in a little, maybe they're a little bit closer.
Hmm.
So this is kind of more judging bill size, because this is how you tell the difference easily between a downy and a hairy woodpecker, but measuring the bill alongside the rest of the head of the bird. I don't find this to be that, I don't usually use this method, but it's recommended by other people. I just kind of go by the general way that the bird looks. I think that the downy woodpecker, because it has the smaller bill, it kind of makes the rest of its head look bigger. It looks like it's a baby bird. And the hairy woodpecker looks more like a regular adult.
And they don't stay in one place long enough to really.
It can be tough.
Yeah.
Yeah, like this slide, and I'm warning you, if everybody sticks around long enough, I have a quiz slide at the end. So
Oh.
this slide is not that great. These two pictures, because they're not turned sideways like in the last one. So, but you can still see that the bill is much more prominent on the hairy woodpecker, which is on the right.
Well, isn't the hairy much bigger also? than
The hairy is
downy?
bigger, yes. It's a
Yeah.
third bigger. And if you see the two of them together, it's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
Or if you got like maybe a robin or some other bird. But if you just see it, and especially if it's 50 yards away, it's kind of hard to tell how big they are.
Okay.
There is another way. It's a line of feathers. I believe it's along the primaries or the tail feathers. There's a line of white spots on one of them, but I can never remember which it is. And if the bird's that close that you can see that, you probably are going to be able to identify it. Another thing is that the hairy woodpecker, the downy woodpecker, has a much more prominent little tuft here, right at the base of the bill. Doesn't really show in this drawing, but on the hairy woodpecker, it's more like a little fuzzy mustache. It's got more of the little whisker-like. And again, it doesn't really show in this picture. And I'm thinking, actually, I probably have that reversed. It's more on the downy woodpecker. Okay, color, pattern, and field marks. And this is an American goldfinch, which a male American goldfinch, the females are kind of a overall yellowish green. Yellow green is sort of the default bird color. You know, when they're making the birds, that's the basic thing. There's a lot of yellow-green birds around, which can be very confusing, especially with warblers in the fall. But the males now, this photo doesn't do them justice. They're a beautiful, bright canary yellow. Okay, the main colors. Obviously, on a bird like a cardinal, it's red. Overall color of a blue jay is blue. Overall color of a bluebird is blue on the top, at least the male. So that's the main color, and of course where the colors are. That's pretty obvious. Field marks are a little less obvious, and field marks are kind of a birder thing. Just going to check my notes here. Slide are we? Oh, this doesn't have the number of the slides. Oh, okay. Yeah, field marks are things that you may not notice, but they hold the key to many bird identifications. Things like the crest, an eye ring, wing bar. Most people don't, unless you're really schooled in bird identification, most people don't notice this. I've had many people come up to me and say, well, I found this dead bird, or I saw this bird. It was yellow. it was yellow-green. And it's like, okay, well, did it have any marks on the wings? Did it have an eye ring? What shape was its beak? Because the bill is very important. I've never had somebody come up to me and say, yeah, I found this yellow-green bird, it was dead. It had a slightly hooked beak like, a vireo. Or it had a big thick beak like a tanager. Okay, these are 3 birds with similar shape and size, but different colors, patterns, and field marks. Obviously, this house finch, the male, the females don't have the reddish color. They're just streaky and brown. But overall color is kind of this warm red color. And it's very streaky, but the red kind of is diffused throughout too. There's a little bit down here by the tail. So you notice an overall reddish color. Most sparrows are overall kind of blah. But I love sparrows, and I love sparrow identification. It really puts a lot of people off because they can be confusing, but if you break them down into groups and know the field marks, they're not that bad. The obvious field mark on the song sparrow is the center spot. There are a couple of other sparrows that have it, but song sparrow is the most common. And this down here is a white-throated sparrow, obviously with the white throat, and the beautiful yellow marks on, this part is called the lores, this little spot between the eye and the bill. They're not all this colorful. There are actually 2 color phases of these sparrows. One of them, the colorful one is very aggressive and territorial and promiscuous, and the tan stripe is really kind of subdued in personality and more monogamous. Tan stripe, it's like opposites attract. Tan stripes and the white stripes will only mate either way. Male or female doesn't matter, but it has to do with a very complicated genetic thing, which I'm not qualified to explain, but it's an example of how complicated things actually are out there in nature.
So you're saying that the aggressive bird, male or female, mates with the unaggressive bird?
Unaggressive ones, yes. And it has to do with covering the best of both worlds. Like one aggressive parent, means that it maintains the territory better. The submissive parent is a better parent and takes better care of the babies. So it's kind of a trade-off of duties.
They never made their own?
The 2 phases or varieties, no, they don't. As a matter of fact, I believe they may not even be able to, due to this is having to do with the way the chromosomes are arranged. I'm not sure about that. It's very complicated. It stretches my whatever I remember
Well,
from high
that's
school
all right,
biology.
but that's fascinating.
But I'm getting kind of far afield here anyway. I'm supposed to be talking about field marks. So those are the field marks on these guys. If you see a sparrow around town, it will probably be a house sparrow. Those are the ones. The males have a very beautiful black bib. I shouldn't say beautiful. It's kind of elegant, But the most common sparrow that you'll see out in the woods is the song sparrow. Okay, this is a good example of field marks. Does anybody notice? Can anyone want to ask what the differences are between these 2 nuthatches? They have very similar shapes.
Oh, yeah, the stripe on the head.
Yeah.
The wing bars, too.
Well, there are no wing bars, so that
Just have the wings.
these are just the feathers. Wing bars kind of go the other way.
The rust on
And
the
the rust.
chest.
Yeah,
Belly,
the
yeah.
red-breasted nuthatch has a red breast, and the striping is very stands out quite a bit.
Are they around here, the red-breasted?
The red-breasted nuthatches come here in the wintertime,
Yeah.
mostly. They like to breed in evergreen areas, and they're more of a woods bird.
Aren't they a smaller bird?
They are smaller, yeah.
I
They're about a
swear.
third smaller.
I swear I have one that looks just like that, but it is a big robin-sized bird.
I don't know what that would be.
Me neither, and I've looked.
Well, if it doesn't go down the tree head first, it's not a nuthatch, because that's what nuthatches do.
Right, right. Yeah, I know. I see that on my
That
deck.
is,
They go down.
yeah, comes under bird behavior, and that I don't think we have a slide of a nuthatch there, but that is if you can't get a good look at it, but if it's kind of lands on the tree and works its way head first down the tree, then it's probably a nuthatch. There's a very similar looking little bird called the brown creeper, which always flies down to the bottom of the tree and works its way up.
Oh.
So it gets the nuthatch gets all the insect eggs and pupae that it can see going down, and then the creeper gets everything that's under the little pieces of bark.
Oh,
Now, nuthatch's foot, is that shaped a little differently to hang on upside down? I'm sure its shape has a lot to do with it's the way it's. This is a posture that they often assume when they're hanging on the tree and looking around, but they don't always look like this. They usually their heads kind of down here, pointed down, looking at the bark. This is what the nuthatch looks like when he wants to make sure nothing's sneaking up on it. Okay, and here we have some of the woodpeckers. There are a lot of woodpeckers in our area. Maybe not a lot, but there are half a dozen or so different kinds of woodpeckers that are found in our area. So woodpeckers have a specialty. They drill holes in trees, and this, but there's more to life than just drilling a hole in a tree. The sapsucker drills little holes, and the sap comes out, and then it drinks the sap. Red-bellied woodpeckers, they have their own niche. I'm not quite sure what exactly it is, but they're more of a woodland bird. They do come around bird feeders in the winter. And pileated woodpeckers, which are these god-awful big woodpeckers the size of a crow, their specialty is excavating giant holes in trees for mostly carpenter ants. So the holes that they make are huge, yeah. And they're usually kind of rectangular, oblong holes. Not always, sometimes they just make a giant cavity.
They don't use them for their nest, do they?
Well, they do nest in holes, but they probably don't use the same holes that they use for feeding, because I would imagine you don't want to nest in a hole full of carpenter ants.
The red-bellied woodpeckers are very floppy looking. I always, when they come around, it always
Yeah.
looks like they're gonna fall forward.
Yeah, they kind of have a sort of loosey-goosey aspect to
Yep.
them. I had some notes here on the woodpeckers that I wanted to.
And the one above the pileated is what? You said that's a
Oh,
sapsucker?
that is the yellow-bellied sapsucker.
Oh.
That is a male because it has the red under the throat. Both sexes have a red on the top of the head. This doesn't show the yellow very much on the yellow-bellied sapsucker because the photo. But this is a photo that shows you why the red-bellied woodpecker is called a red-bellied woodpecker. Normally you don't see it, but they've just got this wash of a pale pinkish color on there. And the bird names don't make sense most of the time. A lot of them come from when these birds were first described scientifically. They all have scientific names which do make sense for the most part, but back in the old days you did not identify a bird with binoculars, you identified a bird with a shotgun. And to describe it scientifically, you would actually have to have the bird in hand and write it up. You still have to do that, but now if it's a rare bird, they try and live trap it and then let it go again. So when you actually have the thing in your hand, you can see it has this red belly. So
hence red-bellied woodpecker. Normally, you almost never see it. And this also results in some of the names like Tennessee warbler. I'm trying to think of Nashville warbler. These birds are not normally palm warbler, because the first one that was collected happened to be perched in a palm tree when whoever it was shot it. Or Audubon collected the first Nashville warbler in Nashville. I'm not sure it was Audubon, but whatever ornithologist. They're not found in Nashville any more than they would be found anywhere else. As a matter of fact, it was on migration. It just happened to be passing through. So, bird names are nonsensical a lot of the times.
Now, do we have the yellow-bellied sapsucker around here?
The yellow-bellied sapsucker passes through. You'll see
Really?
them in the spring and fall, and you will see these. You can see these holes here, and you see these this row just across from his bill that have a little brown.
Yeah.
See how it's in a line?
Yeah.
That's indicative of a yellow-bellied sapsucker. They tend to make their holes go in a horizontal line. Not always, but, and you'll see, so if you look around, if you know anyone who has a mountain ash tree, they love mountain ash, they'll sometimes kill a mountain ash by just drilling too many holes in it.
Mountain ash are all dying.
Well, the ash trees. I don't know if the emerald ash borers go to mountain ash?
So there's a difference between the mountain ash and the ash that are dying in the
Yes.
backyard?
Yeah, mountain ash are just small, they don't get any bigger than about 30 feet. Very pretty, more ornamental around here. And the other, another thing with the yellow-bellied sapsucker, they come through here in the spring. They breed like in the Catskills and further north. There may be some breeding in this county. I'm not sure. Are you guys in Ulster or Orange?
This is Orange. Ulster's
Okay,
just
Ulster's
up the
just
road.
yeah. I'm sure there's some breeding in Ulster County. There's a book, a huge book, the New York State Breeding Bird Atlas, which I have a copy of. I should have bought. That has, the survey from 20 years ago when they did it, and tells you where they recorded all of these birds breeding. Hummingbirds use the sap coming out of sapsucker holes in the spring. It's one of their first foods when they move back. Okay, and we are still on field marks. I'm going to try and hurry things up here a bit, so I might not cover all of these completely. Wait a minute. I'm thinking I may have skipped a slide or two here. Nope. Okay. I think I'm going to move on ahead to the thrushes, because this is a really good example of field marks. So here we have 3 different kinds of thrush. They're all closely related, and they're all very similar in, kind of a brownish red. But there are some obvious differences. The wood thrush on the left, and then the hermit thrush on top, and the veery on the bottom. So what's one obvious difference between these guys, or maybe not so obvious?
Breasts.
The speckling, yes. The wood thrush has real distinct spots, and they go all the way down. The hermit thrush, they kind of go about, they're distinct spots, they only go about halfway down, and the veery has rust-colored spots that are kind of concentrated more towards the top. The color differences, the veery overall is kind of a much warmer bird. It's overall like almost a russet color. The hermit thrush is kind of a brownish color, but the tail is rusty. And it also, this is more, all of these things kind of, interconnect with the different birds, and when you learn them, you can start to put them together. The hermit thrush also likes to pump its tail. A lot of birds do this. It's not understood exactly why. There may be more than one reason, but if you see and you think it's a hermit thrush and it starts doing a little tail wag, then it probably is. And the wood thrush is kind of got more of a rusty back and a heavily streaked breast or spotted breast. These birds, all 3 of them, have
very beautiful songs too. I'm trying to remember which one. I get the hermit thrush and the wood thrush confused, but I think the hermit thrush is the Sound of Music bird. That at the beginning of the sound, there's this like ELA kind of sound. Okay, behavior. Again, this is the pileated woodpecker. Pileated or pileated refers to the crest. It's an old word meaning hat. A lot of bird names are archaic too, like bald eagle. It's not because someone didn't think it had feathers, it's because bald is an old term for white.
Like a piebald horse.
Like piebald, yeah. The names on dragonflies, however, are much more poetic because nobody in the old days gave them names. They've all been given names by the fanatics who go out and write dragonfly guidebooks. So they all have very pretty names. Some examples of behaviors, the way it's flying, where it's flying low over a field. Harrier, bird that we'll have a picture of later, is pretty distinctive the way they hunt, low over a field, perched on a telephone wire. The posture of a bird, which we haven't covered yet. Posture is very definitive. Some birds have really good posture, like flycatchers always sit up straight, almost all the time. Red-tailed hawks, they can sit up straight, but they often tend to slouch a lot. Feeding on the ground. Some birds, tend to feed on the ground more than others. Others, you won't find them doing that. Diving for food in the water, or bottoms up. Different kinds of ducks. Some of the ducks are there's several different kinds of ducks. These aren't really scientific taxonomical differentiations, just more like a birder differentiation between dabbling ducks, diving ducks, and sea and bay ducks. So the diving ducks, we'll cover a few of those later. They go completely underwater. Actually, any of the ducks can, but mallards and some of the others, but they rarely do. They tend to do the typical duck tip up. Okay, swallows. These are some tree swallows on the right. Tree swallows actually, the color varies a lot depending on the way the light hits it. So you can see one of these in this photograph is kind of a turquoisey color. The other one's more blue. Often they look more violet. Sometimes they look almost black. But you can, and then the ones on the wire are barn swallows. You can differentiate barn swallows and tree swallows by the way they fly. Unfortunately, I don't have a clip of that, but barn swallows tend to weave around a lot more. Tree swallows tend to fly more steadily in a straight line. Chimney swifts, which are usually way up high, they have a thing where they flutter their wings and then they glide. Flutter their wings and glide. So behavior can be a key. Up and down flight patterns. There's a lot of goldfinches around now. They're just finishing up their families. They probably are still breeding. Goldfinches breed the latest of probably any of the songbirds around here because they apparently feed their young on seeds. Most other birds feed their young mostly on insects. So they have to wait until the seeds all come out on the wildflowers. So goldfinches, they have this undulating flight pattern. It's useful, but not that useful because there are actually a lot of birds that tend to do that. Woodpeckers and nuthatches also have undulating flight patterns. Okay, this is behavior. European starling, usually in a group, that would be a good behavioral characteristic. You rarely see one starling. Chipping sparrow, often on the ground, searching for food. A cardinal, sturdy, confident, often around houses and yards. Okay, now I get to take a little break from yakking. These are examples of 7 different kinds of feeding behaviors. And we'll just pray that this works. There it goes.
You probably know Vistaprint for business cards, but did you know we also print that and that?
Gee, what kind of bird is that?
Yeah.
Don't forget about that. Or that either.
There we go.
So next time you think print,
Oh,
remember,
I did that.
use Vistaprint for printability
Kindness.
user.
Okay. I wish I could make this bigger, but it doesn't seem to want to let me do it. Alright, I'm going to pause this for a sec. Let's see if we can make it bigger. Computer mode. There we go. Okay. Oh, this is a good place to stop, too. First off, pretty much all of the birds I'm covering in this talk are birds that you're going to see locally. This is the exception. These birds actually do breed in Orange County and Ulster County, but rarely. These are red crossbills, and as you can see, they feed on pine cones. They're real specialists.
Oh.
That's basically what they eat. I'm not sure if they eat anything else. They may. I'm not sure. But they have a bill which is crosses. You can kind of fortuitously, I stop this here. You see how this comes down? This is actually the tip of the bill sticking out here. It's a lot like an oversized parrot bill. The other side goes, this lower part will actually go behind the upper part. So their bill crosses, and this works well for opening the seeds on pine cones. But it's a fascinating feeding technique, one that you probably won't see unless you go to the Adirondacks. Oops, I did the wrong thing. No, there they go. You can kind of see the bill crossing there. Yeah, you can see it crossed. They're like little parrots, the way they climb around too. And these are canvasbacks. These are diving ducks, obviously. I love to watch ducks and loons and things dive. They do these little porpoise hops usually. Not always. Some birds, like grebes, can actually just sink straight down. It's another behavioral clue of, not only that they dive, but how they manage to dive. And canvasbacks are found around here also, like on the Hudson River in the late spring, late fall to early spring, throughout the winter. Let's see. I'm going to go back. Oh, no. Go to the next one.
If you're a homeowner in New York and you're still paying for electricity, then you could be missing out on free government assistance.
Okay. This is the northern shoveler. There was a slide of it before, but it wasn't a good one showing its bill. It's got an enormous flat bill.
Oh, wow. Look at the size of that bill.
Yeah.
Huh.
And they're pretty common, not in the summer, but they're more of a 3-season, 2-season duck. And this is called dabbling, when the duck turns up, and it's normal duck feeding.
Was he in shallow water, sort of? So
Yeah,
that he can
yeah,
get
he's probably
up there?
going right down to the bottom, or maybe the tops of the weeds.
Okay. It's very busy.
So he's eating vegetation or fish?
That's a good question. I can't really tell what he's eating. I think they all ducks that feed in the, in the water like that will eat a certain amount of animal food. So, but mallards like tend to eat a lot of vegetation, and maybe grab a crayfish or a dragonfly larvae just since it's there. These guys, the shovelers, may eat more animal food. Some ducks are actually more carnivorous, like scaup, which are more of an ocean duck. They go down and eat mussels and things. What's the one that eats crabs? I think it's scaup as well.
Seagulls.
And seagulls, yeah. Mostly ducks that eat a lot of things like that aren't the ones that are prime table fare. Okay, this is the red-breasted merganser, which is found in our area in the winter, maybe on the Hudson River, but these are fish ducks. These guys are diving and catching fish. They have little serrations on their bill, almost like teeth. There's a male in the middle. The females are a little more plain.
And they go right under.
Yes, they go under and they catch fish.
Oh my goodness.
There's 3 different kinds. That you can see the one there has a fish he's struggling with. It's pretty amazing how big of a fish a duck or a loon can eat too. Sometimes they overstress it. That doesn't work out too well. And this is called probing. This is a Wilson snipe. These are pretty common birds, but very rarely seen because they stay in they're marsh birds and they stay in the reeds, in the vegetation. So he's poking down into the mud for worms and whatever is down there.
It's got pretty feathers.
And these are in the group, again, it's not necessarily a scientific classification, it's more a birder thing called shorebirds, which, but taxonomically these guys are related to sandpipers. They're kind of an overgrown type of sandpiper. Look back on it. And the little saying for identifying snipes is snipes have stripes. There's several other birds that actually look pretty similar, dowitchers, but those white stripes that go all the way across the back are pretty distinctive. You guys get a chance to do your online shopping here too. I don't get any pay, and this is another shorebird. This is the woodcock, which is very closely related to the snipe and the sandpipers. And he's probing in the soil for earthworms. And they have that very distinctive bobbing walk. Again, no one's sure why they do that. Okay, I think that's our, time to exit this. Now I gotta figure out how to exit it. Okay. Okay, alright, this we gotta do. Exit full screen. Just close this out. Okay. Did we do the kingfisher? No. Alright, and we wanted to do the kingfisher. Hang on. I promised the kingfisher. I think I skipped ahead. Oh, yeah. Let's see. No, okay. Back. Yeah, we're done. Just gotta fiddle with it a bit. Okay, this is kingfisher fishing.
They like to hover. Not that many birds can hover, but
Yeah, but
you
it's
see
pretty
why
high up.
he might not be fishing in the Shungang Kill now.
Oof. Oh my goodness. It was really high up.
Yeah.
It seemed like it.
Yeah, birds have incredible eyesight. You know, if you can imagine what it would be like to be a bird walking around outside, it would be like looking through binoculars, wide field all the time, just seeing things that, you know, we can't even. Swallows flying through the air. When they're flying through the air like that, zipping around, they're catching insects. So they've got to be able to see the insect a distance away to be able to catch it.
But this bird was able to see the fish under the water. Which is
Yes,
which is
yeah,
even more amazing.
yeah. The one thing they probably don't have to worry about is refraction, though. You know how, like, when the light waves bend, because they're usually going straight down. Okay. Paying attention to this different sounds that birds make. Bird calls pretty obvious are a big factor in finding birds and bird identification. I might have to. I'm not quite sure. Oh, there it is. Well, we might not be able to access this. Let's see. What happens if I do that? No, I don't want to do that. Oh. Give it another try or two. It should play the song of, or the call of the nuthatch. Hmm. Okay, well, they make a little sound like "nyah, nyah." And if you learn it, you'll be surprised at how often you will hear it. Because for every bird you see, you know, every bird you see, there's probably 10 birds around that you're not seeing. You hear 10 times as many birds as you see. Okay, habitat. Another great blue heron. Fresh.
Almost prehistoric looking and
What's that?
sounding. The herons?
Yeah.
Prehistoric looking
Yes,
and
they are.
sounding.
They
Their
really start
sound
looking
is-
like dinosaurs and
Right.
pterodactyls. When
Right,
they
and
fly.
their sound, the sound they make.
Okay, habitat is useful for bird identification in some ways. What it's really useful for is if there's a particular bird you want to see, then you have to go to the habitat where that bird is going to be found. So, a wetland is a good place. This is 6.5 Station Marsh, our premier sanctuary. And if you go there at this time of the year, you'll probably almost always see a great blue heron. Although they actually do hunt in fields and stuff as well. Herons stick around into the winter sometimes, but they're usually in a marshy area where they can find frogs and things. But some birds are more specialists, like this marsh wren. And this is a good example of bird shape. Wrens tend to take a very distinctive shape when they sit with their little tails cocked up. So, if you see a wren and it's not in a marsh, it's probably not going to be a marsh wren. It'll be one of the other 3 kinds. But if you do see it in a marsh, it's probably either a marsh wren or a sedge wren. So it helps you kind of narrow things down. Yellow warblers are less dependent, but they do like, for a warbler, they like a wetter area. So you won't find them on hilltops as much, maybe like in the ridges, but down more towards a stream. Okay, this is the Hudson River in winter.
which is kind of its own habitat. This is another type of merganser, another diving duck, the hooded merganser. Really interesting kind of oriental looking bird. This is the male. And the bufflehead. Buffleheads are great little ducks. They come around in the fall and into the spring. As long as there's open water in the winter, you'll find them. If everything freezes over, of course, they move further south or out to the ocean. But the male bufflehead has a very striking pattern, and the colors, they have like, it looks black, you know, in certain angles, but then if you get the right lighting, it's violet and green on the head. And the bald eagles come down from Canada and Maine and spend a lot of time on the Hudson River. Okay, old fields near the forest edge. Although this is not that kind of habitat that you're going to only find one, or that one specific bird is going to be found in. It's good because you'll find a lot of different kinds of birds. Like Cindy, you were talking about your yard.
Yeah.
This is the effect. You've got where you have a field next to a woodland. You're going to have woodland birds. You're going to have field birds, and then you're going to have those birds like a brown thrasher that actually kind of like both. So, and we'll talk about the golden-winged warbler and special habitats that birds have. But some birds like a mixture of both. So, birding areas, when I was younger, I used to go out and always have my binoculars with me, and I go hiking and wonder why I didn't see more birds. Because when you're hiking, first off, you're not necessarily looking for birds. You might not be going at the right time, which is 6 o'clock in the morning, or 5 o'clock in the morning now. And the woods is not the most productive place to find birds, especially in summer because you can't see very far. But even so, there are some birds that you're only going to find in the forest, but open areas are much more productive. The cuckoos, scarlet tanagers, pileated woodpeckers, those birds you're going to find in the deep, unbroken forest.
So what was that blue bird to the side?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Is that an indigo?
Yes, that's the indigo bunting. Yeah, I'm kind of skipping through these birds a little bit. And these are pretty common birds if you're in the right area. And again, they like fields, but they like to have a tree that the males can perch in, so and sing. They're pretty common over in Shawangunk grasslands. The females are much more nondescript. So, although it's great to see, everyone loves to see the male indigo bunting and hear their song. As a birder, it's like the real skillful thing is to find a female indigo bunting, and I've only seen a handful of them in while I'm out birding, because they're always secretive. They're kind of around the, especially around the nest they hide, and they're kind of bland looking. It's the kind of thing where coming across it, it takes a while to recognize what it is, because it doesn't really have any field marks. It's just kind of tan bird.
No blue on it at all.
No blue.
Oh,
Yeah.
isn't that sad? That is very sad.
Okay, this slide should actually have been much more towards the beginning of this program, because the first thing you want to do when you're trying to find out what kind of a bird it is figure out if the bird is actually found where you live. And I've come across this a number of times doing field trips and stuff. They'll start looking through the guidebook and be like, there it is, it's a mottled duck. It's like, yes, it does look exactly like a mottled duck, but they're found in Texas. They're not here. So it's good to check that. Although I will cover this. If you do see a bird, for identifying birds or even just appreciating it, while the bird is there, concentrate on the bird. Look at the bird. Pay attention to what it's doing, what it looks like, and you can make a mental note of the bird, like, okay, it's overall gray, it's really small, it's moving around a lot. If you vocalize this stuff, It looks like it has two little wing bars. I think there's a little bit of an eye ring. Boy, it's moving around a lot. Well, if someone came up and told me that, I'd be like, oh, you saw a kinglet. It sounds like a ruby-crowned kinglet. If you go directly to your field guide or your birding app, then you're going to miss seeing what the bird actually looked like while you're leafing through the thing trying to find it, and now it's gone. So concentrate on the bird first, but pay attention to where you are. Okay, this golden wing warbler is kind of a Orange County specialty because we have one of the few breeding populations of this bird in this area. As you can see, they're more found up around the Great Lakes, but down on Ironwood Road especially, and some other areas in Sterling Forest down in southern Orange County, there are breeding populations of these birds. And what makes it their habitat is that you have a power line through a forest. So they need brushy areas to build their nests. That's where they nest, in areas where trees don't get any higher than the ceiling of this room. But then they move their family into the tops of trees. So they need a mature forest right next to a shrubby area. And they're kind of normally found in places where there might have been a wildfire, or maybe beaver, big beaver meadows that have grown up, things like that. This kind of habitat is not found around here normally. So this is a chance to see a bird which is considered fairly uncommon. Another thing I'm not explaining about range maps, a lot of them, oops, what are we doing here? I'm going the wrong way. Skipping ahead. Why isn't it going backwards? If I go over here, will it go back? No.
Thank you very much.
There we go. Now it's good. No? Yeah, just, you know what happened? I hit the wrong button and it skipped all the way to the end. The range maps, again, I'm realizing hopefully you guys aren't getting too tired because I've been spending more time on some of these than I should. The range maps are color-coded. All seasons is purple, common, in this particular map. So, most of these maps show where the bird would be found in the summer range, its winter range, and in between in the migration. Okay, I'll just try and cover this stuff a little more quickly. Field guide, this is the one I like as a beginner guide, the Peterson's 4th edition. The newer ones are big. They're too big to carry in the field. They're great for at home. But this has the birds arranged in logical order for identifying them. For instance, they have the blue birds on the same page. These birds on this page are not related to each other, but you don't know if you don't know what the bird is, all you know is it's blue. So it's much handier that way. And then with the sparrows, I can find them. Okay, they'll have like this streaky-breasted sparrows in one page, and then all the ones with a clear breast they'll have on another page. So if you see the sparrow and it has a mostly clear breast, you just know which page to go to. A lot of people are going over towards birding apps, which are pretty handy. The Merlin app I find really interesting because the questions that they ask you are, 2 questions on what color it was or whatever, but then where was it, what was it doing, the kinds of things, that, so color is the first thing people think about, but there's a lot of other things which you can use to identify birds. Binoculars. People always wonder, and I did for a long time until I finally figured it out, what the numbers are, because there's two numbers. Two numbers always confuse me. I can never keep track of my blood pressure. It's just, why has it got to be one over the other? So 8 by 42. 8 refers to, it makes things look 8 times bigger, or 8 times closer, if you will. So if it's 80 feet away, it's going to look like it's 10 feet away. And 42 is the size of the objective lens, big lens in the front. So 8 by 42 is kind of the ideal number for general birding. The smaller size binoculars are good if you want a portable pair, and if you get a pair that are made by a reputable company like Vortex or
Bushnell.
whatever. Pardon?
Bushnell.
Yeah. Then they'll be pretty good. But what happens is as this big lens gets smaller, you're pulling in less light. So as it gets dimmer, you're going to see it'll be just as big, like a 8 by 28. You're going to see just as big an image, but it's going to be a lot dimmer, and in faint light, it's not. You're going to lose a lot of detail. I have a pair of binoculars that are like 28 by 12, and if it's dim light, you can actually see less with the binoculars than you can without them. So I'm going to skip ahead for a minute here to question and answer, and then I'm just going to keep going, because I do always like to get to question and answer, and that gives me a little break from the yakking.
Do you need more water?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
But yeah, does anybody have any questions or comments?
The sound that happen, if you hear birds singing, how would you go about identifying it?
Okay, they do have an app now. Merlin has an app that actually identifies. I'm kind of a dinosaur or a Luddite. I don't have that, but it does work really well. It's not 100% foolproof. It might misidentifies things. It's not completely reliable, but it is a problem because I can look in the field guide and you see a bird and you kind of like, okay, that's some kind of gull, or that's some kind of sandpiper. You know where to start. When you hear a sound, you don't know what kind of bird it's coming from. And most of the old-fashioned things of like, where the barred owl is, hook for you, hook for you all. These it's like this is not helpful. These things you can't look it up. I have identified birds using those little mnemonics, but it's sketchy. Sonograms are the coming thing, where they actually print out what the image of what the sound looks like. And this fellow Tom Stephenson, who has a very definitive warbler guide, he's very big on sonograms, and he has sonograms for all the warblers. If you learn how to use them, it would be very useful. I've not mastered that yet. What I find handy is playing back the songs on Merlin, or just listening to them on your computer on Cornell, all about birds, and trying to memorize them.
I have a wren that, if I could strangle it,
Yeah, it's a Carolina wren, probably.
Loud?
Really loud. Yeah, they're incredibly loud.
I can't believe she's
Yeah.
so loud for this little tiny
Little
bird.
tiny bird, yeah. Yeah, and they make an amazing variety of noises. They make, these clear bell-like sounds, their usual, tea kettle, tea kettle, tea kettle, and then
Annoying.
sounds like chirping crickets.
And very annoying.
Yeah.
She's cute.
And then
though.
they're great little birds though. And they make nests in your flowering plants so that they die because you're afraid to water them.
Yep. Yep. And they're very cute.
Okay, any other questions or comments? I'm just going to proceed then on a few birding areas around
And apps. The questions, size, what were the main colors, and that's it. They don't have a thing for field marks because, that would be too complicated. What was it doing? And then the other question, I think, is where were you when you saw the bird? Audubon ID app. Okay, what, where, and when? Incidentally, these are a couple of other birds we haven't mentioned before. The goldeneye, similar to a bufflehead. They're another diving duck, a little bit bigger. Buffleheads are really small. They're about smaller than a crow. But these guys are found in the fall, winter, and spring. And the evening grosbeak, which only comes down occasionally. But last year apparently was a big year for evening grosbeaks down south. Okay, Shangang Grasslands, 15 minutes away from here. Fantastic resource. I have winter on this because this was from I poached this slide from a winter bird ID, but really any time of year is great there. But the winter is great for raptors, particularly the short-eared owls. Anyone here gone and seen the owls in the winter there? No?
I've been there but didn't see the owls.
You didn't see, well,
Yeah.
when were you there?
I was at the wrong time. It was the day they were there that day. I was there at the wrong particular hour.
Oh, okay.
So I
Yeah,
missed
sometimes
that.
they're out in the middle of the day, but that's rare. They usually come out just when it's getting dark,
Right. I
and
was there
in the
earlier.
winter time. But the grasslands is,
There's not that many trees there. Why are they there?
well, because they're open country birds. They live in the Arctic. They come down here in the winter. So they're starting at the end of November, or maybe beginning of November, because that's when they close the trails. And they hunt by flying. So again, behavior, but it's behavior with a modification because the rough-legged hawk, which is about the same size and shape, also hunts by flying.
Thank you.
Flying low, 3 feet or so above the grass, and they just fly along till they can surprise a little vole or mouse or something and dive on it. The owls, they tend to flap more, and they have a particular thing that looks like a giant moth. Field marks also, they have these dark spots on their wings. The harrier has this white rump patch, which is very distinctive. So these guys are starting to come in. I don't believe they breed here, but as the young start to disperse, they become more and more common. So you'll start seeing these. These are a lot of fun to watch hunting. And they also hold their wings at a slight angle, so much like a turkey vulture does. And this is grassland. So anyway, it's about 15 minutes to the east of here. And they have facilities. They have a bathroom. It's a great place. They do a great job of maintaining it. They have a little platform.
Have a gazebo.
And the gazebo, and great view of the Shangang Ridge.
There's a swamp too, or water.
Yeah.
There is a water feature. Yeah, I haven't really found that yet.
It's as you drive in on the left side.
On the left side, you have
It's-
to walk back a little bit.
A little bit, but not much.
Okay.
And it's catch and release. You can fish there,
Oh,
but it's
really?
catch and release.
Oh, okay. What was that?
I suppose you can see it from the road.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But this is there are a number of sparrows which are only found there locally anyway, because they're grassland birds, and bobolinks, which are again a grassland bird found in very few places in Orange County. This is the male. The females look more like a yellowish sparrow, and the males look like this in the breeding season. Around now, they're probably starting to change over into. They all look pretty much the same in the winter, but they start to flock up. So you'll see them outside of their breeding areas and in more generalized places. but the male bobolink's a pretty striking looking bird. Just a note on bird conservation, that there was a thing that was all over Facebook a couple of years ago about how bird populations are declining, and all of these birds, which are, their populations and species-wise and just sheer numbers are declining, which is true. And most birds are in a certain degree of jeopardy from climate change and various other, mostly habitat issues. But it's not true across the board. Some birds, like wetland species, are actually doing much better. Ducks and all. Ducks Unlimited has brought up a lot of, because they're supported by people who hunt ducks, they've brought up a lot of areas up in Canada where the ducks breed, and all the considerations about wetlands that are put in place here. You can't just pave over wetlands anymore. Like back in the old days, it was like, yeah, fill in everything and make a parking lot. Now you can't do it. So wetland birds are doing well. The birds that are doing really poorly are grassland birds, because a lot of these grassland areas, which used to be open, are growing up. Some of these areas were only grasslands because of people, because we cleared the areas, and then there was a boom in grassland birds. Now it's growing back up into trees.
That was an airport. I knew that was an airfield.
Yes, it was an Army airfield.
Yeah.
So anyway, but it's being maintained for the benefit of these open country birds, which is great. American woodcock. I put this slide in because I'm trying to concentrate on areas which are to the north of where I usually am. So we do a field trip in the spring in Highland Lake State Park, which is not too far from here, just north of Middletown. And you go at night, in the early evening rather, not in the middle of the night, and you can hear the males calling and see them doing their display flight. So we had really good luck this year, and actually someone was able to take photos with a flashlight. So this is the male woodcock. They come out and they make their little noise, which is kind of like meh, meh. And then they take off and they fly straight up and circle around and come back and land in almost the same spot.
Is the park still, the park was a mess the last time I was there.
I don't know when it was. Things weren't too bad at where we parked, but yeah, it's not a developed park, so it's kind of like,
With tires and mattresses and beer cans.
I didn't see any garbage.
Then they must have cleaned it up.
Oh, hopefully, yeah. How long ago were you there?
About 2 years.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, the last couple of times I've been there, it hasn't been too
Well,
bad.
that's good, because it was awful.
But yeah, it is sort of like the Wild West there.
Is a woodcock a game bird?
Yes, yeah. And again, that is they benefit from that, because that is one of the birds that the DEC manages habitat for. So there are places like further upstate in the Adirondacks, they do selective clearing for places where they'll be able to breed. Kendridge Farm is not too far from here. That's a really nice area with a lot of little habitats. It's an old farm that has been taken over. Stewart is not too far. Goose Pond's a little further. Okay, we're going to start the quiz here. Does anyone remember what this bird on the left was? Give you a hint, it's the collar.
Yellow.
It's the yellow warbler.
Yellow,
Yeah. And the male has the streaks. The female is the default greenish yellow. And then this guy on the right is the indigo bunting. Their color really varies. Again, according to the way the light hits it, sometimes they're more of a turquoisey color.
It looks a little rough.
Yeah, he had a rough night.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it might be the wind, and I think, as I say, they are overall a uniform color, but this one looks blackish. I think it's just the way the sun was hitting it. 6.5 station, sanctuary, and the Hudson River, especially in winter, or late fall, early spring, you get a lot of different kinds of ducks, different kinds of gulls that come in,
And we were there actually very early in the year. There was a Franklin's gull, which kind of decided for whatever it's the commonest bird that you're going to see out in the Midwest. They're like the ringbill gulls here. They're a parking lot bird. But this one got lost and decided to spend the winter in Newburgh at the sewage treatment plant. So,
You can eat well.
well, yeah, there were actually a number of warblers, and I believe they were feeding off of the little bugs that were hatching out of the reclamation tank. So some of the places: Plum Point Marsh, Iona Island, Constitution Marsh, Croton Point, a little further south, but that's on the other side of the river. Fantastic birding area, all times of the year. Okay,
Kingfisher.
that's the kingfisher. Do you remember which sex it is?
Female.
That's the female, yes.
The female is the
Yeah,
pretty
with the band. Actually, that first slide may have been a male. It may be that the female. No, I don't think the male has any rust color at all. And this we didn't cover, but this is our commonest hawk. Yes, 90% of the hawks that you're going to see are red-tailed hawks. This one, I think, actually has a red tail. It isn't showing up in the photo, but they don't get the red tail until well into their second year. So that's not that definitive, but the band across the chest can usually be used in conjunction with these white feathers on the back. Usually it kind of makes a V shape. Here you can't see it that well, but that, and as you can see, this guy is a young one. He doesn't have the red tail. Okay, I didn't cover this duck before because I kind of skipped ahead on that slide. But this is the ringneck duck. Again, the vagaries of bird naming. You can't see the ringneck unless he really stretches his neck out. I sometimes call it a ringbill duck because it's got these bills along the ring, these rings along the bill. The female is this more drab color. I really love ringneck ducks. They've got a lot of personality, and a good field mark is this white patch. This area on the back is more gray, but in front of it is this white spot which almost glows in the right light. Okay, this guy we've covered a bunch of times. That's that white-breasted nuthatch, yeah. And this is their more common posture with their head down. Okay, well, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Any